A lot of times I'm driving, there's nothing to do, and I shuffle through the radio before I unglue. There's a lot of red on ways, it's traffic, I'm screwed, and I'm wired a bit different than a regular dude. It's not a bad thing, I embrace it, it's true. The radio don't stimulate brain chemistry fluid. The Buddha found nirvana and the Four Noble Truths. Through a meditative process, right action he proved. For me, I require the use of a tool, a detector, pin, pointer, shovel, and beach scoop. I'm meant to work the dirt with my history crew, but everywhere I look, my interest taboo. Most people choose Bieber over Tippecanoe. What does a detectorist listen to when the radio is full of bad music and news? I need an alternative for me to peruse. Beyond Sight and Sound gets fantastic reviews. A metal detecting show where my thought bubble brews. Thank you, Josh Kimmel, for inviting me to a detecting dork out with guests like yours truly.
Are you looking for a high-quality beach and sand scoop? Are you trying to take your hunting to the extreme? How about an American-based company that stands behind their product and everything they sell? Then check out our friends over at XTREME Scoops. John has been making scoops for some time now and makes a quality beach and sand scoop to take your hunting to the next level. XTREME Scoops recently released their new sand shredder that works great in the water and on the beach. And if you're a new Equinox user, you may want to check out his Surfmaster X3 that can trap those small targets you new Equinox users are finding out there. XTREME Scoop's company approach is let's do it right. So do it right, buy it once, and go to the extreme. XTREMEScoops.com. That's XTREME scoops.com.
Hey boys and girls, we are going to talk about S&W shooters and prospectors. What is S&W shooters and prospectors?
We at S&W Shooters and Prospectors help people find treasure.
Did you say treasure?
Yes, treasure. Just listen to this amazing review from our happy customer, Jackie Sparrow.
Chuck was shipshape and a pleasure to deal with. I was able to buy everything that I needed at prices that were shillings less than others. I found my 9 pieces of 8 in no time. Savvy?
I know you're asking yourself, why should I shop at S&W Shooter and Prospectors?
Chuck Smalley has over 45 years of metal detecting experience. He works with each customer one-on-one to customize their setup to match their skill level.
So if you always dreamt of being a pirate, contact Chuck at S&W Shooters and Prospectors and he'll dig up a great deal for you.
High passion rum not included.
Caution. Please do not operate motor vehicles or power equipment while under the influence of this show. Listening to this show could cause side effects such as bouts of laughter, violent binges of cabin fever, and even dreams of silver and gold. Please be advised. Now that the fine print is out of the way, on with the show. All right, we're back. We're live once again. You are listening to Beyond Sight and Sound, metal detecting and treasure hunting radio for all the really cool digging people out there. And some of us are definitely a little cooler than others tonight. That rain is cold. Oh, man, good grief. I had to, we had the furnace turned off, but I had to kind of kick it back on just to keep the chill out. So, who knows? Welcome to Richard. As well as all the other usual suspects in the chat. Shannon's in, Paul, Detecting Addicts, Dylan, Chuck, the Bills, quite a few people Quite a few people dropping in. Getting some good laughs out of Dylan in the chat tonight. Check out his group, the Relic Hunter. And speaking of groups, actually, for those who... Nice, Chuck. I like that. Oh, for those who hadn't seen the post or anything, now we're talking, yeah. For those who hadn't seen the post on the Metal Detecting Beyond Sight and Sound Facebook group, we did recently go through and kind of revamp some of our recommended groups. You can find the recommended groups up at the top of the page. We've got a number of groups in there in our recommended listing, like Detect America and the DA Electrolysis group, because that is the only electrolysis group that we recommend. But there have been some new groups that have cropped up. Yeah, it's been a while since I've went through and kind of revisited. So we've made sure to add Metal Detecting Central Illinois into the recommended group listing, the Relic Hunter into the recommended group listing, Dylan's group, Sea Dog Detecting into the recommended group listing, which is Richard's group. So we do actually have took Barb forever to find the podcast. Well, she's here now. But we have added some groups into the recommended groups. Like I said, just right off the top of my head, the couple of them that I did make sure to add were Sea Dog Detecting, the Relic Hunter, Metal Detecting Central Illinois. Oh, and it seems like there were a couple of others. I mean, I've slept since then. Days have been a little hectic here lately. As well as all the other groups that we do have up there in the recommended groups area. So for those that are a member of the Metal Detecting Beyond Sight and Sound Facebook group, be sure to check them out. Apparently Barb says it wanted her to verify her account. Hey, Connecticut Todd in the house. Very good. Very good. Well, I don't know with Barb. It could be she just gets herself into too much trouble. I think she's back in Facebook jail again. Imagine that. So for those that are following from earlier in the year, I do believe that's 2 now. So we'll see how things go. Anyway, I'm not going to mention any names. If they want to mention it, they can go ahead and... Well, hopefully you don't get a lot of water down there, Steve. Anyway, I'm not going to mention... Well, I guess before I get into that, we'll make sure and mention, obviously, we've got all of our usual links in the description, especially Shooters and Prospectors. Can't forget Chuck. The DA boot camps, some of the Facebook groups, including the Metal Detecting Beyond Sight and Sound Facebook group, the usual suspects for the YouTube channels, Ohio Metal Detecting, All Metal Militia, Detect Ed Outdoors, Crazy Spider Adventures, the Nokta Makro website, the Mini Horde commercial, and also the link for those who like to follow us on other services. We are also available, not only are we available on many of the podcast distribution services, we're also on Amazon, as in Amazon Music, and Audible, as in Audible Books. So, we've got that going on. Now, moving on, I'm not going to mention any names. If they would like to make themselves known, they can do that. But I will not mention any specific name. I was contacted today, which, it happens from time to time. I get questions messaged to me, or someone will ask me, hey, do you have an episode on this topic, or this subject, or anything like that? I was contacted today, and a person in the community had asked me, hey, I know that you have touched on this topic on a number of your episodes, but I'm looking for something a little more in depth. Do you happen to have, or could you do, a show on permissions? Which I sent them a link right away to iHeart, because that archive is far enough back that I was surprised. I don't have it listed here on Spreaker. It's from when I was on one of the other venues. And I have since uploaded that I've got into the vault. I've uploaded that into the dashboard. It will be an upcoming vault episode at some point in the near future. But what I did is I sent them the link to, and this name I will mention, I sent them the link, 6 years ago, I think it was. We had Connecticut Todd on the show to talk about permissions. And the reason why we had Todd on the show to talk about permissions is because he is an absolute book of information on how he goes about procuring permissions. And he just runs right down the list, hits the bullet points. Hey, this is what I do. This is what you can do. This is what works for me. This is what I've done in the past. These are some ideas. These are ways that you can expound on it. And the reason why I chose Todd and approached him to cover that particular topic on that episode is because I have seen I've seen a few speakings, if you will, seminars, whatever, you word it how you want, on what people recommend to do to obtain permissions. And I have seen one, and I can't specifically mention where anymore because this was, we're going back 6+ years. I had seen one somebody had recorded and uploaded from when Connecticut Todd did a talk on permissions. And it was by far one of the best informational talks that I've seen on the topic. So we had him on the show to cover permissions. So when this person reached out to me today, I was able to find that link. Even though it's not on Spreaker, I was able to send them a link to iHeart where they were able to hear that episode with Todd. And I told them, I said, yes, we do touch on the topic fairly regularly on different episodes. But this episode with Todd was primarily dedicated to specifically the topic of permissions. We've had a lot of other people drop in since we've started. Wow. Nice. So welcome aboard. So I sent them, like I said, I send them the link to the episode with Todd on, because he is for those that don't know, just go back through the archives and find any of the archives that Todd has been on the show, and you will very quickly realize that when Todd comes to the show, he is prepared, he is informed, and he speaks personal experience and fact. And if you choose to try and debate that, you had better bring your proof. Because when he does talk, he does know what he's talking about. So I sent this person that link. Told him, I said, here, check this one out. We do touch on the topic from time to time. It's probably high time we should do it again. And I also sent them another link to, I can't remember now. I believe an episode back 2 years ago, maybe, that we had done where we were just kicking some ideas around, permissions, public land versus private land, door knocking, things of that nature. So tonight we're back with the topic of permissions. And we want to hear some of your stories, good, bad, or otherwise. You can drop them in the chat. You can call in, whatever you want to do. Ways that you go about obtaining permissions, because there's a number of you in the chat. You know that it's not always a yes. You are going to have some no's. Some people, landowner whisperers, have a very good success rate, while others of us, sometimes maybe not so much. And maybe we get a lot of no's, especially starting out, until we refine our technique, so to speak. Which, the episode with Todd, there's some great information on ways that you may want to word things. Because sometimes it's all in the terminology. And yes, I think we even mentioned that when Todd was on the show. Todd mentions in the chat that confidence helps. And he's 100% correct. Now, if you're the sort of person that you got to stand in front of the mirror and practice to obtain that confidence, if that's what you need to do, that's what you should be doing. If you have to practice by, I don't know, knocking on your own door and having your significant other answer the door, then that's what you should do. That's what you need to do. Because practice is key to confidence. And if you approach a house and you're acting unsure of yourself, the landowners are going to pick up on that. They really are. Or a lot of landowners will. I'll put it that way. Maybe not all of them, because some people are not real quick. Sometimes. But, let's, we've got a caller coming through. Let's see if I can grab them. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, how's it going, Josh?
Well, how's it going, sir?
It's going. It's going.
Nice.
Got a little rain coming down over here, but hey, I want to thank you for sending those links out today.
Do what?
I want to thank you for sending those links over today. Very appreciated.
Oh, well, okay. If you're okay in letting the cat out of the bag, then I'll let you've done that apparently. So
yeah, that's okay. I got nothing to hide there, you know.
Right. Well, and those links, there are a lot of information in those, and who knows, maybe people will chime in the chat and give some ideas, give some tips, tricks, stories, because sometimes that, you know, I've had permissions that, or I guess I should word that differently. I've had some door knocking attempts that have went very awry, you could say. Where to talk about it on the show, it you know, I can sit back and laugh about it. And honestly, one day I was out door knocking with a guy, and literally the woman come out of her house, practically chasing us to the car, saying that she was going out to the barn to get her husband, and he had a gun. And I told her, I said, you have a lovely day, ma'am, and I'm on my way to the car, just walk in, and I can't help but laugh, because when she said that, I mean, the buddy that was with me, it looked like he turned about 3 shades of white, because he thought for sure he was going to be shot dead on the spot. And he's like, what, how are you finding this so comical? And it's like, I'm sorry. It's, you know, this is probably a pretty serious situation, but if you could have seen the look on your face, I'm lucky I made it to the car, because I just about fell over on the spot laughing.
See, and it's good that you're able to turn around and laugh at it. I mean, but I mean, in some aspects, so I mean, it's kind of frustrating that some of these people have to be so, you know, I don't want to say unapproachable, but so disrespectful and rude about it. If they didn't want you on the property, they could have said, no, thank you, you know, but to threaten you, or, you know, like the experience that I had today was why I reached out to you, is there's this property that I've been looking, this farmer has an old schoolhouse on his property, and I sent him a letter about a week and a half ago, and some people said it'd be good to do a follow-up. So I stopped in today thinking, you know, hey, it's Sunday, you know, it's sunny out a little bit, maybe kind of change my luck. And I stop and knock on the door, and he comes out around the side of the house, and I introduced myself. I said, hey, you know, I sent you a letter about a week and a half ago regards to metal detecting your property. I said, I was wondering if you got a chance to look at the letter. He goes, no. I was like, we're going to pass on that. I said, oh, okay. And, you know, and that was fine. I had no problem taking no for an answer. But the way that he went around, he's like, now please get off my property and don't come back here again. And, you know, like he went from a 0 to a 10 real quick. Like, all right, cool. You know, you could have just left it at no, thank you, I'm not interested. Instead, you got to start yelling at somebody who's just interested in checking out your property. I'm not asking for his daughter's hand in marriage. I'm not asking to borrow his car, but I feel like some of these people, you know, think that that's the same type of, you know, permission that you're seeking.
Right, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the woman that actually threatened to get her husband and he had a gun, that was another thing. I mean, we had no interest necessarily in that property. We had stopped and knocked on the door because there had been an abandoned property at the end of the road. And we thought, well, you know, check with a neighbor. Maybe they know who owns it. And it just so happened that they owned that property. And as soon as she found out we were interested in possibly detecting that property, she came right out the door. And everybody always wants something for nothing. I'm going to get my husband. You guys need to leave now. He's got a gun. And it's like, wow. Okay. You have a good day.
Yeah.
We did actually, I had been out with a guy, we were driving around in the country looking for different places to possibly hunt, and we stopped at a house and talked to some people. They were really, really nice people. And we told them what we were interested in doing, kind of ran through our normal kind of conversation for asking for permission and what we intend to do and all of that. And they were nice enough. They're like, well, you know, really, we'd rather you didn't. And we were fine with that. We're like, that's okay. You know, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and everything. You two have a wonderful day and we'll be on our way. And we left. Well,
that's those type of things. Like when you're able to be civil about it, those are decent. At least you get to have a conversation with them and kind of possibly plant a seed in their mind that, hey, you know, they could still come back and change their mind.
Right. And we took off down the road. You know, no problems, no worries. Checked on a few other spots. Maybe nobody was home or whatever the case was. And about 20 minutes later, we happened to realize, you know, there's a vehicle that's been, when we stop at a house, they stay out on the road and they stay behind us quite a ways. But this has been like 20 minutes now. They're still behind us. We're taking such a random route that they have to be following us. So finally, we just stopped the car and got out and walked back to the car and asked the gentleman if we could help him. And when we got up to the car, we realized that it was that first house that we stopped at. It was that guy. And we asked him, said, you know, can we help you? And he's like, well, he said, after you guys stopped and talked to me, I told my wife, you know, we've lived here 20 years and nobody's ever once stopped and asked something like that. There have been some break-ins out in the country. I think I'm going to follow them and get their license plate number just in case they're up to something. And there again, we told him, said, hey, no worries, we can understand that. Obviously, you can see the license plate on the car, so you've got the number. And we'll even go one further. You know, this is both of our full names. This is where I live. This is where he lives. This is where I work. This is where he works. Completely transparent with him. Once he got his information, he was fine with that. He thanked us and he went on his way. We come back into town and we happen to see an older looking home and woman sitting out on her front porch, and we're going, hey, you know, haven't had any luck yet. Let's try this house. And we go up and we tell her what we're doing and what we'd like to do and if we could hunt her yard and all of that. And she's like, yeah, no problem. It'll be interesting to see what you find. This house is at least 100 years old. Nobody's ever hunted here that I know of. We're like, hey, that's great. You know, we got our gear in the car. We'll be right back. So we go ahead and we open up the trunk. We get our gear out of the car and we notice this woman, no sooner than we get out and start hunting the curb strip, this woman ducks inside her house. And then she comes back out. So, because we were going to thank her, but she had went in and we thought, well, we don't want to knock on the door and bother her. Maybe she ran in to make a phone call or get something to drink or whatever. And she comes back outside and we're going through the curb strip when I happen to look over and see a police car pulling up. It's like, yeah, okay. I shut off my detector and set it down, and my buddy kind of looks at me. He's like, what are you doing? I said, reaching for my ID because we're about to get ran for wants and warrants. Really? And he turned around and he looked and he saw the police cruiser pulling up there. Oh, yeah, okay. Because we've been through this before, you know. And the cops come up and they're like, well, what are you guys doing? Metal detecting. Well, yeah, I can see that. And we explained everything to him and the fact that we had asked permission and everything, and the woman was okay with it. And he says, well, apparently she wasn't, because she called us and says that you guys are taking pictures of her house and she doesn't want you here. But, I'm not sure what you're talking about. We haven't taken pictures of anything. Well, you know, she says she doesn't want you here. I appreciate that you guys are doing things the right way. You're asking permission. Technically, you're not doing anything wrong at this point because you're in the curb strip, which is not her property anyway. But just for sake of circumstance, can you move on and find somewhere else to be? Sure, that's fine. No problem. So we did. We moved on down the street about a block or so and seen another house and knocked on that door and got permission and actually wound up making some pretty nice finds out of that yard. But it does happen. You get some really strange people sometimes. And other people, nice as can be. I mean, greatest people you could ever want to run into. And I've had a lot of permissions myself open up, a lot of doors open up, just because of ring returns, property marker searches, things like that. We actually, because if somebody contacts me about a lost ring that they've got on their property or something, I'll tell them, hey, I'm more than happy to come out and find it for you. And, you know, if I can find it, well, maybe you'll let me hunt the rest of the property. Or maybe you know someone else that has a property I might be interested in hunting, or they've lost something that, you know, maybe we can help them out too. And I've actually had a number of permissions open up that way for me myself. The other night, we just actually, Tam and I got another permission. Some people had purchased a property a little ways from here, and he used to work with me years ago, and he sent her a message and said, hey, does Josh still do metal detecting? I've got a underground buried cable that I'd like to know where it is, because I plan on putting in a fence, and I don't want to run the auger for the post holes through my buried cable and cut the power to the outbuilding. So we went down, looked around. The house is built in, I don't know, 1915. lot of occupation, a lot of trash and other targets in the yard, but we were able to locate the underground cable for him. And there again, he's like, well, do I owe you anything? You don't owe me anything. I'll be back sometime to hunt the rest of the yard. He says, hey, I'm fine with that. All I ask is if you find something cool, I want a picture of it. I just want to see it. I don't want it. I just want to see it. I said, that's fine. I'll be back sometime.
Trade.
Right. Exactly. So I've actually had a number of doors open up for me that way. We've had some people that they've called into the show, and maybe they've even mentioned it in the chat, where sometimes what they'll do is they'll go along to, they'll go out to knock on a door. They usually make sure that they're cleaned up, they're looking decent, maybe take a little display case along of some of the sorts of items that they like to look for, and show it to the homeowner so they can see what they do with the items that they find. And they're very selective about how they word things. We're not treasure hunting. We tell them, we like to look for old tokens or buttons and things of that nature, because there have been, and I'll try to be as careful as possible about how I word this. There have been some, I can think of one in particular TV show that there for a while it was a little hard to door knock and get permissions, because people automatically assumed that there were thousands of dollars of treasure in their yard. So they didn't want anybody hunting it, because they're always coming back with the whole thing of, well, no, I'm saving that for the grandkids. I plan on hunting that sometime, or something like that. So there were some issues there for a while, but that show is no longer around, to the best of my knowledge. I don't even think it's even in, I don't even think they play reruns of it anymore. You may be able to find some bits and pieces on YouTube or something like that. And that's, I'm not even referring to like Oak Island or Ringy and KG or anything like that. This is back before them. But it made things tough there for a while. Plus, when you get into some other areas where there are issues with night hawking, because some people think that this only happens in the UK, and it doesn't. It happens here in the US too, where they're very particular too sometimes. But we've got Chuck on with us, and I'm sure he's got some good stories, tips, or tricks on obtaining permissions. Go ahead, Chuck.
Hey, Chuck. Going, Todd. How's it going, Josh?
Dylan.
Oh, nope, this is Dylan.
Oh, Dylan. I'm sorry. Got the wrong name.
That's all right.
I've had some interesting experiences, but getting permissions. Literally, I've had people. I'm in one yard, and I'm working with a lady. I found her ring. Old gent across the street comes over, and she was all excited I found her ring. And this was just a little over a year ago, and actually 2 years ago now. And he said, why don't you come do my yard when you're done here? Okay. So I get over there, I'm talking with him, and I said, well, if you've got any jewelry that anybody in the family's lost, he said, I did lose a ring here almost 30 years ago. Okay. He said, it's just a plain gold. It was my wedding band. I replaced it. And he says, I have no idea. It may have been in the yard, maybe not. But I said, look, if I come up with that, I'm going to get you. And I'm out detecting, and it's about 1 in the afternoon. And about an hour and a half later, car pulls up, guy gets out, walks in the house, comes storming out the door, and literally reams me. I mean, this guy is PO'd. It's his son. And I told him, I said, he came over and got me, explained to me he may have lost a ring, and I told him I would look while I was detecting, and I would return said ring. He said, my dad has some dementia. He sometimes doesn't even know what house he's in. I said, well, he came across pretty good and clear to me, stood there and talked, and I said, I'm sorry if you have an issue with it, but he's allowing me to hunt, and I said, do you own the home? And he was still a little wound up. I'm trying to do the best I can to calm him down. He said, no, it is my dad's place, and he's been here about 30 years. And I said, he said he lost that ring about 30 years ago. If I find it, he's got it. It's his. He said, well, half the time when I talk to him, he can't remember the names of the grandkids. I said, how many grandkids are in the family? He said, about 9. I said, do you remember them all? He kind of gave me a funny look. And then he smiled. He said, well, only when I can sit down and think about it. And I said, you know,
there you go.
Your dad was forward with me, dead on. But this guy got there and just come out and raced. I figured I'd be seeing a cop, but I didn't. But I've run into situations where one family member gives me permission and the other family member didn't know, and I get caught in the middle.
Yeah, that's always a tricky spot to be in.
That can be really uncomfortable. I had it happen another time. I was in Union County, Missouri, which is on the Iowa border, down below, I don't remember the town's name. I went down there and I was hunting the old town square. I got a gentleman come up, sat and talked with me quite a while, and he said, how would you like to do an old farm? Oh, I'd love to do an old farm. He said, well, come on, follow me out there. So I followed him out, and he showed me this place. It's got this wrought iron fence all the way around it. It is actually a rather nice place. It was more than just an old farmhouse. And he said, I am part owner of this. He said, the owner passed away and willed this to us. And he said, there's possibly buried money on the site. We've been trying to figure that out by what he had always said and Grandma had said and all this kind of stuff. So it was in a state. Well, he said, go ahead and hunt. All right. And he left. So I'm out there and I'm detecting this. It's really nice. And I was under a big oak out on the main entranceway, and I'd ask him some questions, and he filled me in on the original house was built in 1850. It burnt to the ground in 1870. They cleared it and built another home on it, and it was a big limestone place. It was really pretty. And so I'm out there, I'm detecting, and I'm down digging, and I found a couple of Indian hits. Nothing earth-shattering. And I'm listening for larger hits just in the back of your head, you're always thinking. And he told me, he said, if you find something, I had his phone number. I did not have a cell number. I have to go call him. And he said he would be back, check in on me. Well, I'm down digging the hole, and I said, I hear something, but I wasn't paying a lot of attention, and I see 2 shiny shoes and striped pants. I went, Followed up, and
that's an officer.
Sheriff standing there looking down at me. He said, what are you doing? Metal detecting? I can see that. And I had the guy's name, I had his phone number, he wrote on there that he'd given me permission, he looked at it, crumpled it up, threw it down, and he says, he does not have the right to tell you that. I'm half owner of this too. It's the county sheriff. He basically escorted me off the property and followed me into Iowa.
Oh, so not only were you escorted off the property, you were escorted out of the county.
Yes, he followed me. And that was 1981, I believe it was, 80 or 81. And I've never been back to Union County, Missouri. I'm dead serious on that. So sometimes you want to really dig a little harder on who's giving you permission for what.
Right.
I never even called the number. I just left. I'm like, I don't want to have to call the wife and say, hey, you got to come down here and throw bail. Because he was the county sheriff.
Yeah,
now,
way to get yourself in some hot water.
because most county sheriffs aren't that far out from the courthouse. They're busy in town. But he showed up.
Sounds like maybe he had wandering eyes.
Very prominently on permission gone bad.
Yeah, maybe he had wandering eyes that kept him in the loop.
And that could have a million thoughts are going through your head. This guy's running me out of the gosh darn county, and he's not very happy. And yes, I obeyed every stop sign and the speed limit to a T.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't want to give him any excuses. That's when you're just, I apologize, sir. You have a wonderful day. I'm leaving now.
Put my stuff away. I'm out of here. Then I drove back to Keokuk and told Jill about it. She went, "What have you done if he throwed you in jail?" Well, I think they still give me one call. You've been it. After that, I don't know what. But he was not yelling or getting into that mode, but he was in his sheriff's mode. This is the way it's going to be. This is what you're going to do. Goodbye. Yes, sir. I'm out of here.
Right.
So that kind of stuff always burns into your memory. My brother-in-law was the DARE officer in Keokuk. He was sergeant in Keokuk Police, and everybody in that city knows him. So when we go detect in Keokuk, I just, "Hey, Scott, let's go."
That's when you let him knock the doors.
Oh, yes. And Scotty's a talker. He loves to talk with folks, and I'll walk up with him, or I'll be standing by the car getting stuff ready, and he'll be like, "Come on up," and he'll talk, and then he'll finally get his stuff out, and I'll chat with the people, too. I mean, I swear to God, everybody in that town knows him. And so I just let him do it when I'm down there. It's the best format. My brother-in-law lives out in the country, and everybody on the farms out there know him, and I've gotten on some good permissions. So sometimes having those links in areas like that are really helpful.
Exactly. Sometimes it's good to go with a friend from the area that, they've had quite a bit of success in gaining permissions and do it that way. 217, you're live on the air. Who do we have?
This is Lauren. How are you?
Oh, hello, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi. Well, hello there. I was just going to tell you about my permission. My daughter and son-in-law
you
live
just
out
recently got your first private permission.
Yeah. I just started digging last year. And after harvest season last year, they live out in the country, and the farmer who farms across the road from them, pulled up. They're friendly with them and everything. And so I started chatting because I knew I wanted to ask him if I could detect. Because I was aware that there was a blacksmith shop and a gunsmith shop on that property, plus a house.
Nice.
Yeah. So he said, sure. And that was just a 16-acre field there. And as Mike knows, I've pulled up a lot of rusty stuff. But anyways, I started hunting that after harvesting last year. And I found a burn barrel that was not completely buried out there. The farmer had no idea of it. So one of the guys last week that helps him farm just pulled up while I was out there digging, and I showed this burn barrel to him. I said, I don't know how you guys didn't pop a tire on that. And so I marked it with a flag, and then I was out there digging Thursday, and the landowner came up and said, "Oh, I'm so glad you flagged that for me. I'll bring the tractor out and, pull it up." And then I said, now, I think, because I had done some research on it, and I knew that there was a schoolhouse near his property, I think. And so I asked him about it. He goes, "No, that's was on my property. So he goes, get in the truck and I'll take you around. And he said, I hear you like to bottle dig too. And he goes, I've got a bottle digging spot on my property. And so he showed me where the schoolhouse was, where another house was on his property. And then and as we were going around, he goes, let me see if Todd's home, because he had a bar, a tavern on one side of his house, and an old store on the other side of his house.
Wow.
So Todd happened to be home. Yeah. So Todd happened to be home. He introduced me to Todd. I got permission for both of those. And so, I've got my work cut out for me. And
you got years of detecting.
Yeah. And the landowner said he's planted the one field that's got the schoolhouse, that had the schoolhouse on it. But he said I could still detect it right now. And he also said that his great-grandfather back in the 1800s was a school teacher there.
Wow.
So I am so excited to start hunting that.
That's very neat. Good for you.
The weather's been horrible lately, cold and rainy.
Yeah.
Yep.
But see, now there again, you had mentioned you've got relatives that live across the street from the original field that you were hunting. So that was kind of
Correct.
your in.
Right. And he also owns the land behind their house.
Aha.
The farmland behind his house. So behind my daughter and son-in-law's house. But I haven't done any research on what could have been back on that land. So I'll have to do that. And I haven't even asked him that. I just got excited when I found out the schoolhouse was actually on his land. Because back in the day, schoolhouses were only 2 miles apart because kids had to walk to school or ride a horse. So, yeah, it's pretty cool because I've been using an 1898 map of the area where it shows churches and schoolhouses. So, yeah, I'm excited.
I'll bet.
So once you like, especially if you meet a farmer that owns a lot of land, and he knows a lot of people out there.
Yes, they do.
You just start picking up a conversation with him, and he is just so nice. He goes, yeah, there used to be this tavern there, and let's see if Todd's home, and I'll introduce you, and and he introduced me and said metal detect.
And that's the thing too. I mean, some farmers just there's no reasoning with them. They don't want you on their property. But other farmers, it doesn't hurt to ask them too if they've lost any farm implements or anything like that, because sometimes these pieces are not cheap to replace. And if this is a possibility that they can get back, a plow blade or something like that, they may be inclined to let you on the property.
Yeah. I think he was just happy that I was cleaning out all the old horseshoes and nails.
Right, exactly. I mean, tractor tires aren't cheap.
No.
No, and beer cans and that sort of thing. But I did have a mishap Friday. I had a
your tires aren't cheap either.
Yeah. I had a square nail that fell out of my pouch and didn't realize it. And as I was driving home, I noticed my dash light said low tire pressure, left rear. So I drove 10 miles back to town, and I could hear the air leaking out of it.
Oh,
it wasn't
boy.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and
well,
it's a 16-inch.
having ends, you talk about having ends. Once you get in with this farmer. You've done him good. That word gets out amongst the other farmers.
Right, and then doors start
I'm
to
not afraid.
open.
Most in my area, being in the business I was in and being a fire chief and that kind of stuff, they know me out here. For the most part, it's been pretty good. And I get on to a lot of farms and fields and things, and I know I grew up and went to school in one town, another town, and all that I've done, and they know you. They've learned to trust you. They'll learn to trust you, Lauren, because of what you're doing there. So it helps, especially in the outlying areas. And, you know, outlying areas tend to work within their own groups and neighbors. And
that's why the networking is important. Sometimes it's all about that in.
Yeah.
When I was in Wyoming a lot. Go ahead.
I've only moved to the town I live in now 2 years ago, so I barely even know my neighbors, let alone nobody else in this town. But my daughter and her husband only live like 15 minutes away from me out in the country.
Right.
So I'd rather go out and detect in the country. This is just me, for Relic and stuff like that.
Right. You're a Relic girl.
Coins. Yeah. And plus I find Indian arrowheads out there too.
Nice.
So that's always a plus.
Absolutely.
The part that I'm having,
that's fun.
The part that I'm having an issue with is trying to establish that link with a farmer around the area. I've been doing a lot of research. Yes, and that's the part where I'm kind of learning right now. But I mean, I've met with several farmers over the last 2-3 weeks, and I know some of them are really, really nice. Ask about detecting their property. They're not interested on it, but I can sit there and talk to them for 20-30 minutes and just be completely civil with them. And they'll talk about the history of the property and then I'm like, okay, well, thanks anyways. I said, hey, if you change your mind, here's my contact information. And hey, if you have anybody that you think that might be interested, let me know.
Right.
I tell
Leave
them
a card.
Right. And I know that the first couple of times I brought things with me in my hand, and I realized I'm not going to do that anymore. But I talked to him about how last year I saved some farm equipment from running over pieces of rebar that were stuck in the ground or stuck by corn stalks and stuff like that. And I try to make that a point of how it does good for the farmers to have us out on their field.
And it does.
And I
You're
think
right.
That's what. Yeah. When I found that barrel, I think that he was very happy with that.
And they are.
That barrel.
Definitely.
Now, are you talking to farmers about protecting their home property or their field property?
No, just their field property, and I've made that pretty clear with them that I'm not looking to detect your house property. I'm just looking to detect your fields.
Now, are they starting to plant where you are?
When I started reaching out to them, they're not. I know
that
the
fields are probably too wet.
Right. But I mean, they got a few farmers that are starting to plant stuff out there, and I know that I'm not asking permission for their field right now. So, but right. I mean, I've gotten one permission from one farmer. It was a yes, and our city we have farm fields that our city owns, and they'll lease out to local farmers. And so, like, I've contacted the city, and the city reached out to the farmer that was leasing it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, go ahead, by all means." He goes, "Just do me a favor." He goes, don't detect it past May 1st. He goes, and then he goes, you wait until end of October. He goes, and you can go ahead and hunt it again.
Right. Wait for the crops to come off and hit it again. We've got another caller on with us too that does quite a bit of field hunting. How's it going, Ringfinder?
Pretty good there, Josh. How you doing tonight?
All right.
I got some hints for you. I'm really not a door donker, but I do go around to farms. And just this weekend, my buddy and I, we were down around Indian Lake, and I got this handy dandy little GPS on my phone. It's called a GAIA GPS.
Yeah, Gaia.
And it shows you all the old one-room schoolhouses on a map. It will take you right to it. So those that think they have a plat map and they know where the schools are at, sometimes they ain't where they say they are.
Exactly. The map makers, a lot of
right
them,
to it.
a lot of the map makers were fairly accurate, but not all of those maps were accurate. It could show it on one corner of the intersection when it was on the adjacent corner.
Well, a lot of times there, Josh, they were a wooden one on one corner, and they built the brick one on the other corner. So you can't go by that. You got to get out in the field and look. And the first thing I look for,
feet on the ground.
We just found one this weekend, or this last week, and we found coal in the field. No brick or nothing out there, but there was coal. So I knew I was on the right spot. Then I pull out another app on my phone called
OnX.
the ONX Hunt app. Now, these apps cost you about $30 a year, but if you're a relic hunter like I am, it will pay for itself one time out, and it did. And I actually tracked down, it blocks on right where you're standing. It will tell you who owns that property, square off the whole acreage, and take you. I just went down the field with my finger, and I went, right there's his house. Drove down there, and for those that think they can walk up to a house and get permission, try it with a farmer. You're looking at 42 to 45, maybe more minutes talking to him. And most of them
they do
know
like to
what's on
talk
their
sometimes.
property. Yeah, I mean, you spend a lot of time talking to farmers. So, and a lot of them don't know what is on their property. And of course, usually if I'm in that area, we'll take a plat map with me, and I'll say, well, here's a plat map of your property. And of course, anybody who knows what a plat map looks like, they always face north. But give that to a farmer sometime, and if he's facing south, he has to actually turn his body all the way around to where he's standing north to look at this damn map. So had this happen 100 times. So yeah, but I do have
OnX. I've used that for other reasons too. When I actually am hunting, and OnX is great. It's been around for a while, and I've used it like you have, and it will show you an awful lot about property lines.
Yep, exactly.
And it gives you the address too. So like if you see that this property owner owns this section, but he doesn't live there, it tells you like the tax address where you can send a letter to.
Right.
Exactly.
It's a great app. I mean, yes, it's $30 a year. It's worth it to me because a lot of times I'll be out and I'll be looking at 5 farms, and I'll have to start at one, and then the other 4 ain't even it.
He's talking about OnX and Gaia. OnX Hunt is one of them, and then Gaia GPS is the other.
Right.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
Yep. And to get your money out of it, I mean, to get any information out of it, you have to buy the app. Costs you $30 a year.
But that's really not all that much.
Coffee shops.
Right. That's really not all that much for the information that you can gain from it right there at your fingertips. And
exactly right.
In that aspect, you really do get what you pay for.
Yep. The GAIA map or app is for hikers. Yep. And I actually sent them a message that my township was not on the old. I used the old maps that are on there from the. It says 1900s, but it actually goes back into the 1800s. So I go from the 1850s all the way up to the 1940s. I don't care about anything after that. You find that, you're going to find anything you want in silver, gold coins, whatever you want.
Relics.
It'll be in the field.
Yep.
Yeah. You can hunt these yards all you want. I have hunted yards in my early days, and I used to be a paper boy in our town. Heck, I went to every house in our town. I started at one, and they come out. Eddie, what are you looking for? And I said, no, it's some old coins. Oh, let's come and check my property. And I just go from one house to the next. So that's the way it works. Or if they're working on the sidewalks in your town, here's another great one. Just put on a safety vest and go up there with your metal detector, and they'll say, "Are you looking for, gas lines or something?" I said, "No, I'm looking for coins." He said, "Have fun." And I've had guys already tell me, "How did you get permission to hunt that one?" I didn't ask anybody. The mayor told me one time, "If you don't ask, I can't tell you no." It's easier to forgive than ask stupid questions and get saying, "No, I can't give you that information." So, well, I do. And that's good for tree lines too. They always think you're out there looking for water lines.
Right.
Well, that landowner, when he took me around his property and showed me where the schoolhouse was, he said you could see where it was because the color of the dirt is different.
Well, that's true too, but you must have some pretty good white clay soil there, or if it's sandy. But once they start working it, unless you're from the air, you could see it. But
yeah, that's what I was going to say. If it's not too stirred up from being worked, you can usually tell it on a good aerial photo too.
If it's a grassy area, you can definitely see where the block will set to hold a school. Yes, definitely.
Right.
So that's the way we hunt.
They did aerial photography all across the state, and then half of Illinois along the Mississippi River from 35 through 39. And if you go to the GIS maps, the aerial maps, and give them the location you're in, you can see what it looked like anywhere from 35 to 37 farms and everything else. You can pull down Google now through Maprica, overlay maps, and it will show you dead on where those buildings were at, and you can see it.
You can actually use topo maps on their GAIA app. They're right on there. All you got to do is lay them on there. You don't have to go anywhere else. Yep, they're on there.
Frank,
pretty cool.
Whereas hunts with me, he does not have a cell phone. He has a cell pad. And that's what he has all this in there, and he'll pull the maps up, and I just let him do his thing and throw them over the top of each other, and he says, "Here's where we got to be."
But
he sets it up, it will walk you right to it. It will show you right where it was on those maps. It's a lot of fun. He's good with that.
And Frank's also a big fan of Gaia and on X.
Yep.
Yeah. I hunt a lot of the same places. I've been hunting some of the places for over 20 years. One-room schoolhouses. I have yet to go to those schoolhouses. Now I'm talking about the ones not standing. The ones that are standing are for the lazy guys because
everybody and their brothers hit it.
Yep. And my buddy says, "Oh, I know where the school's at. Nobody's ever hunted it." I drove up there and I said, "You mean that damn standing one there?" I said, "If it's standing, it's been hunted." We didn't find squat there. Nothing. Not even a square nail. Well, it hadn't been torn down yet.
You got to work awful hard.
I told him, I said, "Let's go to another one." I picked out one that was not standing, and we had a gold mine there. That's because the lazy guys will never do the research to find something that's not there. Hello?
Exactly.
That's the way it is.
Yep.
So.
Well, I'm going to get off here in case somebody else wants to call in.
Yep, me too, Josh.
Right. Thanks for the call, Lauren.
Okay.
Yep, good program.
Oh, Lauren, good call there, Ringfinder.
Yep, good night.
Thanks for the call,
night,
Denny.
Buddy.
So my question for you, Chuck, is what is your process when you're seeking out permission? What is your process?
pretty frontal. I'll go to the door and I'll knock on it. I did this just 2 weeks ago, and a gentleman that owned the farm property I wanted to hunt, he come to the door, explained to him what we wanted to do, introduced myself, told him where we're from, and he said, "Have at it," and talked to him a little bit about the farm and the history of the farm.
Just out of curiosity, why don't you run him through the steps? This is exactly what I say. This is how I present myself.
Well, I went to the door and I knocked on it. Let's say you're the farmer coming to me, and I said, "Hey, I'm Chuck Smalley. I'm a detectorist." I handed him one of my cards. I said, "I work with a particular group out here. I think you know them. They gave me your name, and they said if I wanted to get on, I should talk to you about getting on these fields." And I said, the history of these fields kind of have my interest up with all the work that's went on them. And I said, and they said, you're the lifelong owner of this farm? He said, yeah, I am. And he said, we got to talking about the history and this kind of stuff. And he was very happy to hear that I had done a little research on his grandfather and great-grandfather. The great-grandfather had bought it. It's been in the family. I know it's been in your family, as I said to him, since 1865. And we're just interested in, because we know there's been a lot of everything from early military through the Indians here and other things going on. You had some buildings over here. Would you let us metal detect it? We're looking for coins. We'll show you what we find. He looked at me. He said, knock yourself out. But he said, I don't own that entire section up there. And he's pointing. He says, where the drain tile is, there's a white post. If you go straight across, there's another white post. You'll have to go out to those white posts on the field access and go beyond them. That's mine. Another guy owns the other part of it. Well, we did that. We hunted it several times, and one day I was out there by myself a little over a week ago, and a blue van comes driving out the field access, and I stopped. I got up and walked over to him. I'm out past the property markers, and I shook his hand. Well, it's his cousin. He owns the other half. And I told him what I was doing. He said, I was showing him stuff, and I had some Indian head pennies. I had several other items that I found that morning. And he says, I'll tell you what, I'm interested in this. He said, if you promise just to show me when I come out what you're finding, have at it. Have a great time. I said, you got your phone number? When I'm done, I'll call you. How far you live? He said, about 2 miles. I said, I'll tell you what, when I'm done, when we go out there next week, there'll be myself and Frank and Jay Morgan, and we'll be out here hunting, and Dave White, and there'll be 4 of us, and I'll give you a call. And he come out, we showed him, he was just tickled to death. I started getting into what I had hoped to start finding. I found probably, as best as I can tell, it's not in the best shape. I found circa 1812 to 1815 military button. I found a trigger guard from a musket.
Nice.
I found some round ball. I found camp lead. In other words, where they were making, whatever ammo they needed. I found something I haven't shown online or anything, but I know what it is. I've found them before. I found trade copper. Trade copper ran up and down the Mississippi River with early tribes.
My.
The northern tribes out of northern Michigan, where the copper mines are,
yep,
actually would trade down to get things from here to take up there and trade them copper so they could make points and whatever else they need. And I have a nice long piece. It looks like it's been hammered a little bit. It wasn't good enough to make into an arrowhead, and they pitched it. But I have a piece of trade copper.
Nice.
So that
Very nice.
opened other doors, and then he was telling us about another field and another farmer, and he actually contacted him, and I got contacted, but he says, it doesn't look like you're going to be able to get in there. I just talked to him this morning, and he gave me a call, and he said, if you guys want to come up, he says, come on up, but he said they will plant once this drains down a little bit, probably in 7 to 10 days. And I said, well, I hope it gets dry enough. He said, don't walk out there now. You're going to be knee-deep.
Right.
And that's just a couple miles down the road. The one site we're hunting is 100 acres. This site he's talking about is 77 acres. So once you get in with a group of farmers and you show them and tell them, and I actually offered him some
It
stuff,
only takes one.
But farmers, if you earn their trust, but don't ever make one of the group mad at you. Because once you've done that, the whole group's going to be mad at you.
You've just lost hundreds of acres.
Yep.
If not more.
Close those gates, fill those holes. I don't care if you're in a field or not. Kick the dirt back in those holes.
Oh, right. I mean, I know that you keep the farmers happy, and you keep any of the property owners happy, and obviously, you practice the good courtesy. You make sure that you take the trash with you, you cover the holes back in with you, you tell them about, any of the finds that you may come across. But the problem I'm finding in my area is that, I moved through to this town probably 6 years ago, where my grandfather was very well known. I've gotten calls asking if I was related to him, and I said yes. But getting that initial, building that name for yourself, I guess, trying to build links and connections with all these other farmers, it's hard to get that very first one.
Right. Yeah, you're still working on the whole networking.
Yeah, we're building a name for myself.
Building those bridges.
Yeah.
The farmers, they've got cell phones, but they still network out in the country. And if you're not familiar on their networking, just drive some country roads. You'll figure it out, because you'll see two pickup trucks parked out in that road, and them boys are talking to each other, and they're looking at the corn coming up. They're talking the cattle. They're talking whatever else they're raising, and that is farm networking. They still do it. I've been out west. They still do it. I rode with a guy one day. He saw a dust cloud. We were out in Wyoming. He said, "That's got to be David." He floored it. We're driving fire roads out across the Jack Morrow at 60 miles an hour. I'm white-knuckled over there, and he's just talking like every day. We pulled up. These boys talked for an hour, and at the very end, Kenny Ballard turned around, and he said, "Hey, I want you to meet my buddy here." And he introduced me to him. We talked a little while. He said, "Oh, you're the prospector." "Yeah, I kind of like doing that." He says, "I got some old gold claims. I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you what, you have Kenny. Kenny knows where you're at. You can go out there and run your electronic buzz box." He called it a buzz box. "And see if you find any gold. If you find any, let me know. You tell Kenny, he'll call me." And that was it.
Kenny knows how to find me.
Ken out there, and actually I did find gold. I did tell him. He said, "How big was it?" I said, "I got one that's 2 penny weight. I got another one that's maybe 3. I got some gram ones." He said, "Oh, you had a good day, didn't you?" He said, "Well, if you find a big one, let me know." And he hung up. He didn't say hi, bye, nothing. He just hung up.
Right.
So that's networking on the farm field. Them guys will drive tractors up. And, it's not always a cell phone.
Or find your local coffee shop.
That's right.
Because many times they're all going to meet up there in the morning.
Sold to the community. It's not the community itself. It's the farmers out here. When you're talking spending tax dollars, and I spend tax dollars to keep a fire department going, we were going to buy a ladder truck. Not because that we need it for the village. It's all the industry out here, and the industry pays the lion's share of it. But I've got to sell it to the local community. So I went into coffee shops. Now, I grew up here. I know most of these people. They knew my parents, so on and so forth. So I started buying. It ain't the old boys in the farm running it. It's their wives. Trust me. They run the checkbook. They run the purse string. If he wants a new tractor, he'll get it. He's just got to sell it to her. So I went in and started buying coffee and telling the girls from all the farms, they met every morning at the coffee shop. There'd be 18, 20. I'd buy their coffee for several days. Told them I needed to buy a ladder truck. And two of them piped up, "What do you need that for?" I said, "Well, several things." I started explaining why. I started explaining like this. The guys that come and complain are the husbands. The wives don't show up too much when they're at the meeting, but the husbands come up and really go after you. So if you get in with the farm wife and she says, "Go ahead," I'll guarantee you're good to go, and then he'll tell all his buddies and you'll get on other places. That's a fact.
That's right.
I sold that truck to the wives. Never got a complaint when we bought it. Now, I'm not talking chump change either. We're talking, at that time it was $700,000. We're going to replace it with a $1.1 million now. So I'm on my sales pitch again. So you got to give a sales pitch of yourself to the people you're in front of.
You have to have confidence because you're selling yourself. We've got a pirate on with us. I didn't know they allowed phones in jail.
Is this your one call?
It is.
Uh-oh.
I'm not running a raffle to get you bail money. Period.
Well, hunting farms in North Carolina in the mountains is totally like you people. If you came to visit, you'd be going, "Are you kidding me?" Because they only farm like near the rivers, the creeks, and whatnot, because it's the only place there's flat land. So you drive up my road and go around the corner, and there's maybe a football-sized field, farmland, and then there's a road, and then there'll be another piece, and you may go another 3 miles before there's another. So they kind of farm anywhere where they can, and so you don't have, 20, 30, 40, 50 acres. You have like 10, 20 acre spots, and that's it. If that.
Right.
Yep.
Well, and even small spots like that. I mean, 10 acres is a lot of ground.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you, when I got my GPX, I thought, okay, I'm going to go. They just plowed this field, and the guy gave me permission. And I went up there, I don't know if it was with the Pro or the Deus. I need to go back to it. But I dug at least 3 cases of beer cans, and Coke cans, and Pepsi cans. It got real discouraging because I didn't find anything. I came out of there with a garbage bag full of cans.
Right.
But you came out with the garbage bag, and they note that.
That's
you
right.
Up the garbage, they'll let you back in.
Yeah. I had gotten permission for a farm field. This been probably 10 years ago now, where the people that lived there had told me a story that one of them, their grandmother, had told them when she lived there, her parents used to let her walk across the field to the train tracks, and the train would stop and pick her up and take her into the neighboring town to visit with other relatives. So we're thinking, hey, this is going to be a great spot, And we get out there, and I swear to God, for the last 60 years, there were raging alcoholics that lived there that as soon as the beer can went empty, they just dropped it wherever they finished it and cracked open another one and kept on walking. So
that's it.
We were all over this field, and by the time we were done, we had probably a bag and a half of beer cans. And told the people, said, well, we didn't really find much of like what we were looking for, but hey, your son recycles metal, right? And they're like, well, yeah. We said, well, here you go. We got all of this he can have. I'm sure he'll get a kick out of that. And they're like, well, you guys were just out there hitting the field. You ought to come up and check around the yard and stuff too, because there used to be a oil well over in this area of the yard. So we're like, okay, sure, yeah, we'll give it a shot. And we were hunting up in the front yard, and pretty much at the same time, across the yard from one another, both of us hit large scents. And then we go over by the tree line near where this, I don't know, little shack for the oil well would have been or whatever. We're hunting along that tree line, and that's when we start popping old pre-Civil War flat buttons. And we're like, wow, now see, this is what we're talking about. We're hitting large scents, we're hitting flat buttons, but the field just absolutely sucked. I mean, every beer, every brand of beer you could think of under the sun, we were finding cans. It was horrid. And you had to dig them because they sounded so nice.
Yeah, I had she's 95. And I think she said they added on to her house in like 1910. Her parents owned it. The problem that stinks is, where do you think they added onto the house? It was between the old house and the driveway, which is where all the good stuff would have been.
Right.
And so they got a nice front porch. It's an old, nice country home. I hit that front yard. I hit the yard between the drive and the house. I hit up behind the house, and then I went up to, it's a rental now, but it used to be a chicken coop where her dad raised his chickens, and I found 2 wheat pennies.
Wow.
That was it.
Wow.
Well, I've run in, when I've traveled, Barb, and I've went down to the south, and I've been looking for places to hunt, knocking on a few doors. They know immediately. They don't have to see the license plate. When you talk to them, I don't know how many times I've heard, "Oh, you're a Yankee." Yes, sir.
Yep.
And right there, that is a check mark on the no box.
Yes.
Absolutely.
At the minute I opened my mouth, I mean, I stopped across from where I found all my tokens, Blackwood Lumber. On the other side of the highway is where the railroad came across. And it's an old stone house, so probably 18-something, early 1900s. And the guy was really nice. I think he's passed, so I might need to go back and talk. But he was really nice, and I seen him. It was a Sunday. I shouldn't have stopped on a Sunday. And I told him, I introduced myself, and he's like, "Come on in." Well, I felt weird going into somebody's house I don't know. And I was like, "That's okay. I'm good. We can talk here." And then I, told him I like to metal detect, and had he thought about letting somebody detect. And he just so seriously turned and looked at me and went, "Everything out there in that ground, I consider mine." I said, "Well, thank you. Have a great day." He said, "You too." And I left.
Well, and I'll tell you
one thing. You pick advantages. We were hunting in a place in Tennessee that has been hunted, and actually Don Finch told us to stop and talk to this guy. Darwin and Frank knew him. We were headed for Mount Pillier. We stopped there. We took an extra day plus just to go to this spot. And it was a big Union encampment. We had the permission to do just one small section, and we were pulling up all kinds of bullets, all kinds of lead, mostly cleaner bullets. And I got talking. I went down to the truck, and I set the detector down, and I literally pulled up a couple of handfuls. I'm sitting there, and the old boy come over, "What'd you find?" I'm showing him. I said, "You got any of these?" "No." "You want some? Take all you want." He picked out some nice ones. He called his son over. He'd been loading hay bales, the big round ones, driving around a tractor, taking care of cattle. And I gave him a bunch. And I said, "I got more if you want them." "No, that's more than enough." We got talking. And at the time on my truck, it says S&W in big block letters, S&W Shooter Supplies. He said, "You sell guns?" I said, "Yeah, I do." He said, we got talking. He said, "Can you fix guns?" I said, "That depends. I'm not a licensed gunsmith, but if it's nothing major." And he says, "I can't get my," and it was a Remington 218B, which is kind of a rarer caliber. He brought it out. Well, the bolt was out of time. It wouldn't work. I got the bolt out, started working it, did a turnaround on the end of the bolt, popped her in. I said, "You got a round?" "Yeah." Brought it in, bam. He said, "I haven't been able to fire that in 5 years. I fixed his gun." He said, "What do you want for it?" I said, "Nothing." I said, "You're letting us hunt here." I said, "What about those fields up on top where the main encampment was?" well, that belongs to some guy I think it was Lacey, whatever. I said, boy, I'd like to get up there and hunt. You would? Picked the phone up, called him. He said, I said, that church we come down this road, I was told this was one of the main avenues for the Union and the Confederates coming through back and forth with the battles up through here. Yeah, it was. He said, that is the original church. That is sat there. And I said, I'd kind of like to hunt that, but is that a church? No, that's privately owned. She owns this, and this gal over here, I'll call her. We got permission on the church. We got permission for the old roadway and permission for a field. Because I sat down and I could talk. One thing that was common with farmers, no matter where you're north or south, was guns.
And there you go.
And I picked one for him, and I got onto that, and Darwin found his first Union breastplate there.
Nice.
Well, he was tickled. I got a bunch of stuff. I got some coins, but unfortunately, they'd done a lot of fill work around the church from the original site. But we still got stuff. We were working the old roadbed. We worked up on the hillside, and an invite to go back at any time we want.
Well, and another thing too, Dylan, if say the coffee shops don't work or the other gathering places for the farmers, not that it works for everybody, but some people have had success in putting an ad up on Craigslist or even on one of your local area Facebook pages, or even just post it up on your timeline, where some of the other people in town that are on your friends list realizes that, hey, he's into metal detecting, and he says he's interested, he's looking for different places to hunt. I wonder if he's thought about this place or that place, or heck, who knows? Maybe he'd like to come and see what's in my yard. And maybe they contact you.
That's not a bad idea. I have done some to local buy and sell areas, and they take that down real quick because it's you're not selling anything or...
Right.
But there are a couple of ideas that I was kind of shooting around. I thought about putting a few ads up at the local grocery store, just talking about, free recovery of lost personal items.
Right. Post office bulletin board.
But because I want to, target the farmers and stuff on there, I kind of want to put one out there just as, attention farmers, you have old metal scrap in your field that you would like to have removed, contact this person.
Contact your local grain elevator.
You can have all the maps in the world, but the whole thing is interconnectivity. And once you got your foot in the door, and I'll tell you what, KG, one of the things he does, he's got a couple places he likes to hunt and detect on. He literally goes out and helps the farmer, climbs up in the tractor and plows.
Right. Well, and that's another point too that Chuck makes is, if you're a game hunter and you've got permissions to hunt game on some properties, maybe you can even, hey, do you mind if I metal detect too?
That's not a bad idea. I don't really hunt anywhere. I don't really hunt anywhere close to my hometown. That's about 2.5, 3 hours west from where I live. But when I do get up there, there's a couple people that I've gotten a chance to hunt on their old cabins and stuff. That's actually one of the places I got to check out. Used to be, it's actually 2 miles off of one of the military camps up here. And during World War II, they used to have soldiers that would live right off post because they had a POW camp there too. And this guy who owned this was in the military. He had 13 kids and his wife, and they had just a small little section in a 2-bedroom house. And talking to this neighbor of this guy, he said that he was like, yeah, he goes, he was a pretty big drunk. He'd always come home and start drinking, and like, well, we'll check out his property. And I was pulling up old bottle tops and beer cans and everything. I'm like, oh, it definitely supports the story. If you have 13 kids and a wife in a 2-bedroom house, about the size of
I
an
think
average
I'd drink.
kitchen out. Yeah, I don't think so. I know I would. Holy crap.
But yeah, you may even want to think about just stopping in at your local grain elevator and seeing if they've got a bulletin board that you could put a little ad up on, of, hey, farmers, if you lost some equipment or need things cleaned out of your fields, contact me. I'm more than happy to help do what I can.
That's a great idea. I appreciate that. That's actually
there's all kinds of avenues to get out there, and Ringfinder made a good point, having the proper mapping devices so you know the property you're on or want to get to if you get on something, or there's all kinds of avenues to work out there, but I always present yourself well and tell them what you're doing, and you're going to run into ones like Josh and I have run into a couple times where it's like, nope, or Barb. And then there's other times you do it and it tumbles. They see you.
Right.
Really
it dominoes, and now you've got all sorts of doors opening.
They let you on. Yeah, we're just, see, I found a couple Indian head pennies or whatever. And go at it. Now, I've got one farm down here. They'll let me detect all day, but I'm not allowed to pick up any arrowheads.
Right.
And I've seen them. I don't touch them.
And like we were saying at the beginning of the show, you've got to be confident with yourself. And if you go back and check the episode on permissions with Todd Yerkes, he will definitely, he can't stress that enough. It's all about networking and getting those links, those paths in place. And when you're trying to get in with the farmers, it just takes one. If you can get one, then the others will start getting on board, because word will start to spread and they tell their friends. Or like Chuck said, oh, well, yeah, I know who owns that. Hold on, I'll call them. And I'll call this person too. And next thing you know, you've got the whole country block or something.
Which makes sense. I mean, keeping the network strong and keeping everybody happy is going to build a good name for yourself, and word of mouth travels pretty fast.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to get that ball rolling sometimes. But
her
it will
husband
roll.
on the farm there, he sees them, she'll pick them up. So they're hers. You ain't going to tell her any different, Cheryl. They're hers. I actually took her out the one day and pointed down. There was 3 of them in a line. I said, there you go. Her husband had just chiseled and rolled it up, and she said, ooh, cool. I didn't touch them. I said, I know where they're at, though. And she said, show me. Walked her down 100 yards from the house.
Right.
I started building some pretty good connections with some of the farmers that I work with, actually. I'm a maintenance mechanic up here at Ahern Company, but a couple of the farmers that work with me, they talk about all the things that they find in the field, and I told them about how going to dig stock, a lot of people were popping up arrowheads, and I just talked to the guy about it on Friday, and I probably talked to him about the whole entire 30-minute lunch break about all the arrowheads that he popped up, and he said, oh, I got like 4 plaques full of arrowheads, and I've got a good table full of like old tools and copper culture that I found.
Nice.
I start talking about like start talking about the buttons that I found. He goes, I can care less about that crap. He goes, I can't see that shit from the plow. Oh, excuse my language. But he's like, but when I see arrowheads, he goes, I can stop my plow real quick. He goes, because that is what I'm looking for when I'm plowing up. He goes, you see something that looks remotely out of place, you hop out. Oh, there's a rock. Nope, that's an arrowhead.
Right. Exactly. And some of these farmers that you've already been talking to like that, you keep talking to them, you keep working them a little bit, and sometimes it just takes them a little bit of time to warm up to the idea.
Yes, it does.
Well,
yes,
definitely
it does.
listening, definitely talking to you guys today kind of helped build my confidence again to get back out there. I was
Well, if somebody says no, don't let it crush you.
Right, and we mentioned that when Todd was on for the show on permissions. The way to look at it is that if you go up to the door and they say no, you haven't lost anything because you didn't have it to begin with. You know, so you're just out a little bit of time. Yes, it's a little crushing at first to get the no, but sooner or later, persistence pays off, and you will get that yes. Or if it's a property you really want to get on and they keep telling you no, keep an eye out. Maybe that property will come up for sale and the new owners will be more receptive to it and give you permission. Or I sent you the link where me and Lucky Lou were talking about some things, how he goes about getting permissions. And he may have even mentioned in that show, there's been one particular house that he's really been interested in. And he's told the owner before, hey, I'll bring an extra detector. You can hunt with me if you want. If you let me just show you what I do, I'll show you how I dig the holes. You can keep everything I find. I just wanted a chance to hunt here. And the guy did let him dig a couple of holes and took everything promptly, but there for the longest time, Lou would stop on the way home from work, on his way to the grocery store or whatever. If he saw the guy outside, he'd stop and strike up a conversation and say, well, you know, hey, is today going to be the day you let me on the property? Kind of joking around with him, and the guy will be like, no, not today. And one day he stops, fully expecting to hear, no, not today. And finally wore the guy down or whatever, I guess, because the guy's like, yeah, sure, go ahead, knock yourself out. It floored Lou. But it does happen.
I had one in Keokuk, Iowa. My brother-in-law, this couple owned, actually had formerly been a church, turned into a home, and it was nicely redone, pretty place. And I knocked on the door, and Scott was with me, and he says, I don't know these folks. I said, okay. So I talked to him for a while, and she says, we're planning on buying one. Oh, I said, good. And I said, that would be a lot of fun. So I promptly whip a card out. Here you go. Give me a call. I sell them. She just looked at me, stopped, stammered a little bit. Okay, I'll tell my husband. Well, I didn't think anything after that. She was just looking for an easy out. We stopped and talked to this lady, I don't know, at least, and her husband a couple times, but most of the time it was her, just checking to see if we get on there. Are you still wanting to buy a detector? Yeah, we're still talking about it. I said, I'll tell you what, why don't you let us do it? Well, I went by, this was a couple years ago, that place was for sale. It sold. It turned over. We knocked on the door. Gentleman answered the door. His wife come up. That's cool. Let's go out and look and see what's found. And we offered him, we were finding all kinds of stuff. I gave her a couple Mercury dimes, an Indian penny, a Buffalo nickel. They called me up and bought a detector.
There you go.
And
there you go.
They owned other houses in town. So we've been having a lot of fun together down there, and Scott goes with them quite a bit. So it changed hands, and it got real conducive. They were just hoping that I would go away by saying, well, we're going to buy our own. I'll sell you one. That stops them.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, I hand a business card every time. I've had several instances of that.
And you never know, too, like Chuck had mentioned earlier, I was out hunting a place that I had permission for, and I'm just hunting in the curb lawn when all of a sudden a car stops. And guy's like, hey, you're metal detecting, huh? I said, yeah. He says, you having much luck? I said, well, no, not really, but to be honest, I just got here like 15 minutes ago. Oh, well, if you get bored, He says, this is my address. I live up on the main drag. I just bought the house about 6 months ago. It was built in the 1890s. It's got some of the original woodwork inside. He says, why don't you come up and try your luck up there? He says, I'm just a big fan of history anyway. He says, I'm not, you can keep everything you find. I want to know what's there. I want to know if something's there. So we thought, sure, well, why not? I mean, the guy's practically dragging us up there. We might as well go give it a shot. And maybe 10 minutes into the yard, we wound up, we picked up a mercury dime and promptly gave that to the guy. He's like, that is so cool. And hey, you know what? I'm sure we'll find more. You can just keep that one. Are you sure? Yeah. And that's fine. And we hunt for a little while longer, and he comes out and he checks on us from time to time to see if we're finding much of anything. And finally we told him, said, well, we probably ought to get going. And he says, hey, that's fine. I want to thank you guys for dropping by, and anytime you're back in town, you just come on up, knock on the door, and you can hunt it again if you want. Sometimes they just come out of the blue like that.
And there's one other tip I'll give you. You know any realtors?
Right.
Real estate agents?
Probably only like 2 or 3 of them, but yeah.
If you know any of them kind of close, there's some inns there also.
That's right, because a lot of times the realtors will say, well, yeah, you can come on and hunt this property. Just don't tear up the yard too bad or anything. And because
I've hunted some that have been reverted, and it was a forced sale. The realtor's listing it because the city now owns it. And if there's no city laws against it, they'll say, go ahead and go.
Absolutely. And they, you have a nice enough conversation with them, they'll make sure and keep your number on file and put you in the loop. And when they've got a property comes up that they think you might be interested in, they just call you.
And occasionally I've had a few of them say, you think you can find the property stakes? Well, give me a shot at it. See what we can find. Find the property stakes. They'll say, go ahead and hunt.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that opens doors quick, too, because that saves a lot of money.
Yes, it does. They're very appreciative of that.
Yes, they are.
I work
untapped
with the
resource.
I work with the local sheriff's department here and some of the police departments. When they're looking for lost items, they'll call me for looking for working scenes. I've done a couple, 2, 3 of them here in the past year for them. And that opens doors up too. So,
it does.
They see you, they learn to trust you, you're working with them. And they'll tell people, oh, you lost a ring? I've got a guy I'll call for you.
Yep.
Go up, find the ring, you're in.
Yep.
Even if you attempt it.
With the police department, then?
I couldn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. How do you get in with the police department then? You just go in and you tell them that if they need help, locating any lost items and stuff?
I've got a little different circumstance. I know most of them because I'm a fire chief. I'm on calls with them a lot. So I've learned these guys. I know who they are. And they'll say, hey, chief, we got a gal. They'll call me up. She just lost a ring. You want to come look? I drove all the way down to the southern end of our county, and our county's a long one. It's 106 miles from top to bottom. I live in the top end. I drove almost 100 miles, recovered a ring, and ended up getting 4 or 5 permissions out of the deal.
Yep. Like I said earlier, you recover a lost item, it opens up doors.
Yeah,
yes, it does.
I've never really thought about reaching out to the police department because I know a lot of the police officers that are in my hometown because of family, friends, or relatives.
Well, see,
that are in the police.
There you go. Yeah, because sometimes these some departments aren't very receptive to it, but other departments, especially if you have friends that are on the force, then if somebody calls them about, hey, I lost my car keys or something, maybe they'll call you. And that gets you an in. Or some of these departments, they just don't have it in the budget to have the training or the equipment or things of that nature to go and look for certain things like that, where maybe they can utilize you to come in and do things like that, because at that point they don't have to worry about training. You have the equipment, you have the training, you know how to use your machine, you know what you're listening for, where it speeds up the process.
A criminal scene with them,
you have to be very careful.
Actually went through yes. Don't touch anything. If they're saying we've got a knife, a gun, we're looking for shell casings, and all you do is throw a flag down next to it, put your hand up, wave them over, and say, see if this is what you're looking for.
Exactly. And we do have an episode in the vault that'll be coming up sometime. Yeah, we do have an episode in the vault that'll be coming up sometime in the future about forensic evidence recovery.
Awesome. I'll look forward to that one as well.
So there's all kinds of avenues to present yourself well, and that's one of them. Work with your local departments. I got called all the way over Chicago to recover a handgun.
Yeah.
Guy knew me from training their department on the use of metal detection, and they actually bought two from me. They bought two 705s. They could not, for some reason, locate this. I went over twice, and this is in the city of Chicago. I did recover that handgun, and it was used in a murder. And then they sent me a notification I may have to show in court as a
witness,
detection expert. Forgot that far. The guy tumbled. It was over with.
Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So if you do that kind of work, be prepared for the dark side of it. You may have to sit in the courtroom.
Right. That's right.
Did you touch this? Oh, did you do this? No. How do you know what you're doing when you're doing that? You didn't throw something down just to make. And they will. I've been grilled by lawyers, man. They'll go to the farthest extreme to make you look bad.
They're vicious. They are vicious. A couple of weeks ago, we actually had a stabbing here in a nearby town to me that I do know some people on the force, and they were walking around for quite some time trying to locate the knife that was used. They already had their suspect in the cruiser and all of that, but they were just trying to recover the weapon because he had tossed it. And Tam had even made the comment, because we were listening to it on the scanner. She's like, well, you know everybody that's out there on the scene right now. Why don't you give them a call, see if they want you to come over and find it? And I just told her, I said, you know what? They know other guys that use detectors over there too, and I'm not getting wrapped up in this because I don't need pulled into court.
No, I just worked one with them there, and it was a guy pulled off the road, knew a guy that was down fishing, had a bad beef with him. I don't know the intricacies of it, but they called me out there looking for casings. He had been shot at, missed. He actually dove into the Mississippi River, went up a tube, a drainlet tube, where the water's pumped out. It wasn't pumping then, and hit out. This guy fired 6 shots from the highway down.
Wow.
I proved one thing. I proved it. I climbed up and down there. I found no shell casing, no ejections, and I got up finally, and I spent about 2 hours climbing up and down through the brush, cutting brush down, looking. And I looked at the main detective. I said, we just proved something. He said,
using a revolver.
Right. He was using a revolver.
Yep.
Case closed for me, but they stood there while I diligently went all over the place. I found stuff in cans. I mean, I pulled through all kinds of stuff. I worked just to find one casing, did not. I said, the guy had a revolver. I think I'm done.
Yep. And they have to stand there and watch you for proper evidence chain.
Oh, yeah. I've got flags. I got bamboo sticks. When I go do this with them, if I find something, I'll drop a wire flag down. detective comes down, I have found casings for them. I don't touch them. I have found a knife for them, and I found a revolver.
Yep.
And no touch. Don't pick anything up. Just flag it, get them over there, and back away, and let them do their job then.
Yep, absolutely. But
unfortunately, I've helped in bodies, so that all goes with the territory I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But with you having friends on the force and people that are in law enforcement that you grew up with or you're friends with in town, that's another potential in right there.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to reach out and try to expand more, through different departments, and even like you said, checking out the different for the grain mills, the farmers. So
yeah,
sometimes when a deputy pulls up alongside of me and I'm detecting, I generally know them. They're wanting to see what I found and just jaw a little bit. I mean, most of them up in this end of the county I've worked with, there's a lot of younger ones on, and they know I do this, and they come up, and I've shown them how to run detectors. And I said, tell your bosses I'll sell them a couple. No, they said, they told me to tell you, no, we're not buying one because we got you. Well, okay.
Yep, there goes that potential sale.
Yep. So they're a good group of guys. So
yeah, absolutely.
A lot of fun.
Gotta support the blue line,
over, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I think well,
but
I'll hop off here, but I want to say thank you guys for giving me your advice and kind of help boost my confidence back up there again.
Get your confidence up. You're going to go to the one that you least think you're ever going to get permission on, hit the door and get it.
It's right. Gonna come. It comes when you least expect it sometimes. And that's the great thing about some of the groups and shows and everything. We do have a genuine interest in not only what we do, but what the other people do that follow the show or follow the group or whatever, in them being successful out in the field. And sometimes it's just phrasing things a little differently or coming up with that right idea that maybe flips the light switch on where it's like, oh, hey, I didn't think about that. That's an option to try. I'll have to try that. Hopefully, some of these have helped, or maybe something that you've seen in the chat, or
some of our listeners. Now, a lot of these guys are pretty seasoned on getting permissions. Some know where they can go in towns, that kind of stuff, and that's great. But some people that don't know, I always tell them, you fill in your holes no matter where you're at. You get permission. Don't ever leave a gate open on a farm. That's the worst thing you can do in front of a farmer. Close the gate behind you. Tell you another thing. When you're out in the fields and you take a vehicle out there, and when you least expect it, here comes a farmer down the work road with a tractor, and you're a half a mile out there, you just tell him, I'll leave my keys on my dash. If you need to move my car, move it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. More than likely where you're at when you're out in the middle of the country, you generally don't have too many other people than the farmer out there working that field. I learned that a long time ago. So he knew where I had him hid. He moved the car. I come back, had been moved, or moved the truck. I knew he moved it. I was in his way at that moment. He didn't think he'd be down there, but he was coming down to go to the feedlot, taking care of the cattle. I had to go down there for some reason, and my truck was parked there. He just got up, put it off the side, and went on his way. I try to park out of their way. In some places you can't.
Right, yeah. Right. Sometimes you think you're out of the way, and you've come to find out you're right in the way. But that's right. I mean, hopefully
back out of here, gentlemen. Great night, great talk. Everybody out there have a safe day, because we're losing them. They're dropping like flies. Even Barb left.
Right. Well, they probably called for lights out.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. She's in jail.
Right.
All right. Well, you guys have a good night, and I'll talk to you guys soon.
Well, hopefully it helps.
Right,
hopefully you find
care,
some
buddy.
of the information useful and keep us posted.
Yeah.
Definitely will.
One other tip. Doesn't hurt to get a little business card. Your name, address, phone number, metal detectors, this kind of stuff. I like to, put a little blurb on there about yourself and hand them the card. They may not say yes right away, but then all of a sudden they may lose something, and there you are. They'll call you.
Oh, yes, they will. I usually I usually have my information on one side of the card and Chuck's information on the other. So when they go, yeah, I've thought about buying a metal detector. Hey, flip that card over. Call that guy.
There you go. Thank you.
There you go.
Everybody have a safe time there. Dylan, good call, buddy. Take care of yourself. And I'm going to get out of here, Josh, so we don't get put in jail with Spreaker.
All right. Thanks for the call, guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Well, hopefully some people have found the information useful. Always interested in trying to do what we can to help others out, help them be successful out there in the field, whatever aspect that may be in. And there's no question that's not worth asking. Feel free to reach out and we'll hit the topic. I mean, this is one that we do touch on from time to time, but it's been a while since we've dedicated an entire episode to it, and the timing was perfect. I mean, we had thought about doing another round of Dig Your Plug, but we thought, you know what, let's hit this. And we'll still, for those that are looking, yes, we do have another board we're building. We will be doing another round of Dig Your Plug soon. We have prizes in. Oh, good grief! We've got a real. We've got some other coins. We've got I believe a $50. I think it's a walker that Chuck's going to be throwing in on the next board probably. Even got a little something, little nice surprise from Nokta Makro coming up. So it's going to be interesting, but. We have definitely ran on for quite some time tonight, and we appreciate everyone for hanging in there with us. Hopefully people enjoyed the Archive Wednesday. I know they prefer the live runs over the archives, but things are a little hectic right now, so we appreciate everyone's patience as we get through all of this stuff. Until the next one, have a wonderful evening, folks. Get out there and try to find something, and we wish you the very best. Hopefully you are successful at it. Have a wonderful evening. We're out of here.